This is a survival story set in a Lovecraftian world. Imagine that everyone on Earth is mysteriously transported to a bizarre sea, where each person is given a ship. The ocean is filled with all sorts of eerie and monstrous creatures. To survive, you may acquire various weapons, or perhaps gain different abilities to help you stay alive. This is the fourth installment in this series. If you're interested, you can start from the first episode. Trust me, you'll experience a uniquely captivating story.
Elias Graves had stocked up on 10-eye fruit, a loaf of black bread, 6 L of fresh water, and several long-legged sardines. During this time, he had also caught a real monster, a fish half a meter long. Name: red-lipped eel. Type: food. Description: the finest flame-kissed lips, but too bad they grow on a fish's mouth. Would you dare to share a passionate kiss with it? A deep abyss fish, edible and non-toxic, with tender lips. The moment this fish appeared, it gave him quite a shock. Eating this fish meant gnawing on its fiery red lips, and even Elias Graves found it hard to bring himself to do so, unless he was truly starving. Looking at the fiery red lips, Elias Graves was suddenly reminded of the nightmare he had the previous night. The memory was vivid. In the dream, a red-eyed woman was pointing a gun at his head. The gleaming crimson gaze sent a chill down his spine. You feel a chill run through you, sanity -8. The gun in her hand was the one Elias Graves was all too familiar with, his own flintlock pistol. But why was it in her hands? The thought of it filled him with dread. It was no wonder that he hadn't slept well. His eyes now shadowed with thick dark circles. Thankfully, the corpse poison inside him had been purged, and his wounds had mostly healed. His health was at 76, but his energy still restored far too slowly. Even after a night's rest, he only regained about 30 energy points. This severely limited his daytime activities. If this continued, it would be unsustainable. He needed a way to quickly restore his energy to offset this flaw. Something like holy water, which could help, but it was far too expensive and only provided a weak effect. As he brooded, an anonymous message arrived. "Look up to the right. There's an island. Who are you?" Elias Graves responded, but the other party didn't reply. In this world, to initiate a private chat with someone, you must at least know their ship's name. If it's not a special ship, you also need to know their personal name. But Elias Graves had never disclosed any of his information. How did this person know? Could it be a cheat? After thinking for a while, he came to 2 conclusions. 1. The other person might have a special skill, seeing him, discovering his ship's name, and they're not far from him. 2. It might be a special quest given by the system. He circled the ship, but saw no suspicious vessels. Indeed, up to the right, there was an island. It wasn't very big, with some patches of green, suggesting there were trees. Those trees were likely choppable, providing wood. There might be other resources to gather on the island. Had he discovered it on his own, he would have immediately gone to check it out. But with someone warning him, he hesitated. After a moment of thought, Elias Graves decided to circle the island first, observing for any signs of other ships or player activity. If no such signs appeared, he'd choose a suitable spot to land. The gun in his hand gave him confidence. At this stage, few players had guns. At least none had been mentioned in the chat. As the ship drew closer, Elias Graves got a good look at the island. It was a tropical island, about 3 kilometers in diameter, not very large. The island's edge was lined with golden sands, dotted with the occasional crabs and seashells skittering about. To Elias Graves, however, these were but protein waiting to be harvested. Yet what caught his attention most were the towering coconut trees. The tallest among them bore a bronze treasure chest. No sign of other players had touched this place, and these coconuts had been left undisturbed. After a brief hesitation, Elias Graves made his decision to approach the island. He found a suitable spot to anchor his boat, then disembarked onto the shore. The moment his feet touched land, he was struck by an uncanny sensation, as though time itself had warped. It had only been a few days since he was adrift at sea, yet here the world felt different. On the beach, Elias collected a variety of food: green crabs, clams, and scallops. Name: green crab. Type: food. Description: a common crab, naturally raised. Its flesh rich and delicious. Name: clams. Type: ingredient. Description: a common shellfish, edible and perfect for making a savory clam soup. Name: scallops. Type: food. Description: if paired with garlic and vermicelli, grilled to perfection, they will leave you craving more. He gathered them all, tossing them into his boat's hold, planning to feast later. But the true allure lay ahead. The verdant stretch of coconut trees, their thick, dripping green fruits heavy upon their boughs. The trees stood tall, most reaching 7 or 8 meters, and the largest nearly 10, bearing fruits too tempting to resist. This was an essential source of fresh water, one that could be stored for long periods, and the coconut meat provided a decent supply of dietary fiber. The taste wasn't bad either. A true treasure, one that should never be passed up when encountered. However, climbing trees wasn't Elias Graves' forte. A simple misstep could result in a broken leg or worse, a shattered spine. Without any means to heal himself, such risks were not worth taking. If he were to shoot the tree down, it would be a simple enough task, but the noise it would generate could attract unwanted attention. If monsters roamed the island, the consequences could be disastrous. He walked along the edge of the tree line, his gaze falling upon several stones of various sizes scattered about. Name: stone. Type: resource. Description: can be collected as stone material for crafting. If it's a large stone, it's best to prepare a pickaxe. Elias Graves immediately began collecting a number of stones of medium size, placing them along the coast. He then swam back to the Nightmare, adjusted its position, and used the grappling hooks to haul the stones aboard. After 2 trips, he had collected 25 units of stone. To craft a basic stone axe, he would need 5 units of stone and 5 units of wood. This was one of the basic tools available through the in-game crafting function in the log. The quality, however, would be questionable at best, perhaps even worse than common equipment, as it didn't even display any stats. He took the crude stone axe and disembarked, walking toward the tallest coconut tree. It bore more than a dozen large coconuts and a bronze chest. This would be his first target. The navigational log provided many convenient functions. But once he stepped away from it, the world felt eerily like reality. Dangerously close to the real world, but still subtly off. Cutting down the tree was not only a matter of strength, but also of skill, especially with a stone axe that wasn't very sharp, causing the handle to jolt painfully in his hands. After felling the largest coconut tree, Elias Graves felt his energy drain immediately, losing 13 points, leaving him with only 30. Even at full strength, he could barely manage to chop down 5 or 6 trees. Any more, and he'd risk fainting due to the low energy. As the tree toppled, Elias Graves rushed to gather the coconuts, his face lighting up with glee as he picked one up. Item: Vitality Coconut. Type: food. Description: a rare special coconut, rich in vitamins and minerals. The coconut water inside can accelerate stamina recovery. Without hesitation, Elias Graves cracked open the coconut and drank deeply, feeling the energy rush through him as the vitality restoration buff took effect. This was exactly what he needed, and he felt like he'd struck gold with this discovery. He opened the bronze chest, and several glowing orbs dropped out. Touching them, they transformed into 3 items. Item: Vitality Coconut Drink Recipe. Type: recipe. Quality: good. Description: grants the recipe for making Vitality Coconut Drink. Requires reagent bottles, salt, and Vitality coconuts. Item: edible sea salt, 500 g. Type: food. Description: a seasoning that enhances flavor and replenishes salt. Item: reagent rack. Type: tool. Quality: fine. Description: an essential tool for crafting various potions, can be synthesized with crystals. It provides potion bottles, which disappear once the potion is consumed. A treasure chest not only contained the recipe but also the other two necessary materials for the concoction. Elias Graves rejoiced and immediately used the recipe, then set to work preparing the vital coconut elixir. Required materials: vital coconut X1, 10 g of salt. Required tool: potion rack. Elias Graves crafted a bottle. Name: Vital Coconut Elixir. Type: consumable. Quality: fine. Description: a drink that brings a burst of vitality. Restores 10 stamina and increases stamina recovery speed by 50%. Lasting for 8 hours. Can only be used once every 24 hours. Elias Graves smiled and turned toward the coastline, where the trees stood heavy with coconuts. His axe danced through the air in a flourish. With his stamina nearly at 30, he lay on the beach to rest. Once he had recovered, he would continue chopping trees. By evening, he had felled 4 trees, gathering 38 vital coconuts and 43 pieces of wood, all of which he carted back to the nightmare ship. The number of wood pieces per tree varies from 5 to 15 depending on the size, with massive trees yielding more. He wasn't ready to leave yet. He planned to spend the night aboard the ship and resume chopping the next day. But just before heading back, he made a new discovery. On the beach, there was a glowing, crystalline trail only 100 meters away from him. As night fell, the trail glowed faintly, its eerie light only now drawing Elias Graves' attention. The trail led inward, and the glowing substance was a kind of slime that had oozed from some creature's body, reeking of a pungent, fetid odor. He took 2 steps along the glowing trail, heading deeper into the island. There were no crashing waves here, and the trail became clearer and more distinct. From its shape, it appeared to be the mark of a serpent-like creature, slithering across the ground. Elias Graves measured with his palm, estimating the creature to be at least half a meter wide. No small beast. Not using the gun was the right choice after all. Elias Graves changed his mind, deciding against spending the night near the shore. He would retreat farther, for on this island, there were other creatures. He gripped his flintlock tightly, eyes darting warily in every direction as he retreated. Once back aboard the Nightmare, he exhaled deeply. Elias Graves sat in the captain's cabin, contemplating for a moment. He resolved to gather more vital coconuts, despite the risks. Such a rare resource couldn't be passed up. It could solve many of the Nightmare's lingering issues, and it was too precious to let slip through his fingers. Who knew if further islands would even have such coconuts? He steered the Nightmare away from the island, anchoring roughly 20 nautical miles out. At this distance, the island was no longer visible. Even if the unknown creatures on the island could swim, they had no reason to travel this far to feast on a mere few pounds of flesh. Why not feast on the abundant fish of the sea? He drank a bottle of the coconut elixir, snacked on a few scallops, a single eye fruit, and half a red-lipped eel. Before sleeping, he gripped his flintlock with his right hand, resting it beneath the bed with his fingers careful not to touch the trigger. This was a new tactic Elias Graves had devised, ready to shoot the creature at his door with the fastest draw possible. He quickly drifted into sleep and soon found himself in a nightmare. In the dead of night, a sweet, ethereal voice rose from outside the ship, its melody hauntingly beautiful, like the song of an angel. But this was the open sea. Who could possibly be singing? Elias Graves groggily sat up, his mind clouded and lost in the entrancing melody. He could not resist its pull. A look of obsession crossed his face as his gaze fixed on the door of the captain's cabin. There, standing just beyond, was a humanoid figure, half woman, half fish, resembling the legendary mermaid. She had golden locks cascading down her back, her form seductive and otherworldly. Her body was drenched, as though freshly bathed, and her chest was modestly concealed by 2 large seashells. Her waist was slim, but below her navel, fine scales began to appear, and her lower half merged into a shimmering fish tail. Such creatures were commonly known as mermaids, but in these waters, they went by another name: the sea hag, a nightmare for sailors of old. The sea hag sang as she smiled at Elias Graves, swaying her body in a seductive display. The sound trap by the door was triggered, ringing with clinking noises, but it was futile now. Elias Graves had lost all control. His face twisted with madness as he stumbled toward the sea hag, still gripping the flintlock in his hand. Passive. The captivating song has bewitched you. You have lost control of your body, sanity -10. You see an incredibly beautiful woman, your mind and body ensnared. Sanity -7. Around 50 nautical miles from the nightmare, another ship drifted, the astrologer's ship, tailing the nightmare from a distance. Captain Suna sat in the cabin, scribbling something in a small notebook. He can eat strange foods without flinching, and even kiss an eel. What's more, he hasn't shown a hint of madness at all. This is utterly unbelievable. The small notebook was titled XX Observation Journal. Since Suna didn't know Elias Graves' true name, she hadn't filled it in yet. Within it, she meticulously recorded Elias Graves' private details. How long he slept, when he awoke, what he caught, and what he ate. Yes, that's right. More than one sea hag? Yes, there are 3 in total. They seem to be a social species, skilled in using their song to enchant men, both as mates and as food. Elias Graves looked down at his body, now fully exposed, and a sudden chill ran through him. Nearby, scattered on the floor, were the tattered pirate clothes and a rusted flintlock gun. They are legendary fantastical creatures, but they exist in this world. Their behavior is much like the legends say. The woman continued, her voice almost wistful, as if she held a particular fascination for these sea hags. Elias Graves, however, was filled with dread, and quickly donned the pirate clothes, snatching up the flintlock from the floor. Wearing the blood-stained pirate clothes, you feel a strange chill, sanity -1. At that moment, his sanity teetered dangerously at 50. One more step and he'd fall into madness. This slime is disgusting. Why would sea hags secrete slime? In the sea, many soft-bodied or scaleless creatures secrete slime to protect themselves. So, it's only natural for sea hags to do the same. Moreover, this slime glows in the dark, attracting prey, much like the anglerfish's lure. It helps them display their seductive forms, aiding in the hunting process. The woman explained the rationale, her words laced with her personal thoughts on sea hags. You're a player, right? How did you end up here? Elias Graves suddenly asked. This woman's origin was unclear, and there was something inherently strange about her, especially those bright red eyes, which sent a chill down his spine. They were identical to the eyes he'd seen in his nightmares. This heightened his suspicion. Though she didn't seem hostile and appeared to be trying to help him, Elias Graves couldn't ignore the unease gnawing at him. My name is Suna. I'm a passing player who was unlucky enough to be caught by the sea hags and turned into emergency rations. But you said sea hags target only men. Why did they capture you? Elias Graves asked. Suna had prepared a story for just this moment. She didn't intend to tell the truth, and instead gestured to a corner. I'm not alone. My companions were eaten by the sea hags, but for some reason, they haven't eaten you, Suna explained. Elias Graves followed her gaze. There, lying in the corner, was the mutilated body of a man, decaying and half-eaten. His abdomen had been opened, intestines spilled out, and his face was contorted in an agonizing grimace. His limbs were missing. He had likely suffered unimaginable torture in life. Around the body were scattered human bones, stripped clean, a testament to the sea hag's savagery. But did Suna actually know this man? Not at all. She had simply used the body to fabricate a lie, making it seem more reasonable for her to have been captured. In reality, Suna had come alone, tailing Elias Graves and the sea hags. She had watched, captivated by the sea hags, until she was caught off guard by 2 more hags that surrounded her. She had originally thought only one sea hag was involved. As for the body, the man had been there before Elias Graves arrived. Once Elias Graves showed up, however, the man seemed to lose his value, and the sea hags consumed him. So, Suna had no idea who this unfortunate man really was or where he came from. After hearing Suna's story, Elias Graves believed part of it but remained on edge. "You said it's been 3 days, but why don't I feel hungry at all?" Elias Graves asked. He checked his status and found that, aside from his low sanity, all other stats were nearly full. Suna gestured to another corner. There lay a large sailfish, a vicious fish with a sharp upper jaw as pointed as a spear. But the sailfish was dead, with signs of having been gnawed on. It seemed that Elias Graves had survived by feeding on this fish during his time here. But what about water? Do I not need to drink water? Elias Graves had no memory of the past 3 days. His mind clouded and foggy, making everything feel unreal. On the other side, Suna grew anxious. "Can you untie me first? In half an hour, those sea hags will be back. I don't want to miss this chance," Suna urged, still bound, only able to squirm like a worm. She had spent 3 days observing the sea hags, learning their habits, before taking the risk to crawl over and try to wake Elias Graves. But Elias Graves' gaze toward her was conflicted. This woman was clever and seemed to harbor no ill intentions. But the more she behaved like that, the more suspicious he grew. Something wasn't right. She was far too composed. If anyone else were bound in such a situation, with their life hanging by a thread, they wouldn't be speaking so casually. And she had appeared in his nightmares. The nightmares had foretold that this woman would aim a gun at his head and try to kill him. This made Elias Graves deeply torn. He wasn't sure whether to help her or not. But killing a woman who had no malice toward him, one who even seemed to show some kindness, wasn't something he could do. After a long moment of contemplation, Elias Graves finally made up his mind. He sensed that this woman was hiding something from him, so he decided to test her first. Whether he would find answers or not, he would at least get some reaction. His gaze turned cold as he focused on Suna, pointing the dark muzzle of the gun at her. His voice chillingly calm as he threatened. "Woman, 3 sentences. Give me one good reason not to kill you." Suna's pupils constricted, as if she couldn't understand the logic behind Elias Graves' thoughts. "What are you saying? Did the sea hags eat your brain? I have a gun in my hand." Elias Graves chuckled darkly, flicking the gun in his hand like a rogue outlaw. He raised a finger and warned her. "That's the first sentence. You have 2 more. Don't waste your chance." The barrel of the gun was silent and imposing, the atmosphere suddenly thick with tension. After a long, excruciating silence, Suna's face showed signs of panic, regret, perhaps, or remorse. Her words rushed out in a hurry. "I can give you all the resources I have, including the food on the ship." Elias Graves shook his head, the smile on his face unnerving. "Not enough. If I kill you, all of that becomes mine." Suna's breathing grew ragged, her eyes darting around as if searching for an escape. After a few more moments, she revealed her secret. I can provide you with a sailing map. That way, your voyages will be much safer." "A sailing map? My ship is called the Astrologer's Ship. It has access to maps of the surrounding seas." "So, that's how it is." Elias Graves' smile turned even colder. "You lured me here, didn't you?" He moved with deliberate calm, reaching into his pirate coat's pocket and pulling out a rolled-up piece of parchment. "I'm sure you haven't seen this before." He unfurled the map, revealing a detailed blueprint of a ship. "This is a ship's blueprint. If I kill the ship's owner, I can disassemble the special class ship and take it for myself. Now, tell me, why shouldn't I kill you and take control of your ship's abilities?" Suna's face turned ashen. This was the first time she had ever heard of such a thing. Ship blueprints, and she knew Elias Graves wasn't lying. That pirate ship, he had destroyed it himself. Finally, she revealed an expression of angry resentment, her face devoid of any calmness. She glared at Elias Graves, venom in her voice. "You greedy, despicable little worm. I spit on you. Go ahead, shoot. I'll curse you to the ends of hell." With that, she closed her eyes, waiting for Elias Graves to pull the trigger. "Now that's some backbone. I'll grant you your wish." Elias Graves said coldly. Suna trembled slightly, but she waited and waited, yet no pain or gunshot came. She opened her eyes to see Elias Graves rummaging through the pile of bones, retrieving a sharp broken bone, and walking toward her. "Give me half of the supplies from your ship and a month's worth of sailing maps, and I'll spare you," Elias Graves said with a serious tone. Suna's face first showed shock, then contorted with anger. She realized it now. Elias Graves was deliberately trying to deceive her. Her temper flared, and she snapped, "What if I don't agree? I have a gun, you have no choice but to agree." Elias Graves flicked the gun in his hand again, adopting a posture of victory. Suna, seeing there was no other option, reluctantly agreed to his terms. But she didn't feel the slightest remorse. After all, her ship had only 8 units of wood, 5 units of fabric, and 4 liters of freshwater. Giving away half of it meant little to her. Her ship, the astrologer's ship, was special. Upgrades didn't require wood or fabric, but rather 100 crystals and 50 steel. So wood and fabric were essentially useless to her and had all been converted into food and water. Of course, she wasn't about to tell Elias Graves she was a pauper. She was quite eager to see the look on his face when he realized what she'd given him. Elias Graves, oblivious to her poverty, believed he had successfully extorted her. After all, with the imbalance of information, he had no idea Suna was so broke. He used the broken bone to slice through the seaweed binding her, setting her free. But Suna had been bound for too long, and with days of no food, she was extremely weak. She couldn't stand up immediately. However, the actions she made with her hands left Elias Graves utterly stunned. "What are you doing?" Elias Graves asked, confused. Suna was gathering the glowing, foul-smelling slime into a small mound, then opened her mouth and began to inhale it. This slime was incredibly foul and repulsive. "I'm thirsty." The slime from the sea hags provides water, salt, and some nutrition, Suna said calmly, her brow furrowing. Clearly, the slime tasted awful, but she forced herself not to vomit. "Aren't you afraid the slime might be poisonous?" Elias Graves asked. "Not at all. You've eaten it for 3 days and haven't been poisoned." "Ah." Elias Graves had no words. He only thought to himself that this woman was a little abnormal. After replenishing herself with the slime, Suna seemed much better. She reached into her clothes and pulled out a small knife, crouching down in front of the sailfish carcass. She sliced through its skin and began chewing on fresh fish meat. The knife was also an equipped item. Name: Witch's Dagger. Type: Artifact. Quality: Good. Description: A dagger favored by witches, with many uses, including cutting open your belly, can deal minor damage to otherworldly creatures. As Suna gradually regained her strength, Elias Graves began to examine the cave. The space wasn't large, with only a narrow passage leading outside, through which the sound of rain pattered and the wind howled faintly. Inside the cave was a pool of water, its depth unknown, likely connected to the sea. He checked the male corpse and concluded it had been dead for some time. Running his hands over the body, he found nothing of value. The pool, the entrance. Where do the sea hags usually return from? Elias Graves asked Suna. Both are possible, she replied. Do they act together? Not always. Suna had observed the sea hags for 3 days, noting their habits. They usually split into 2 groups. The larger one acts alone, while the 2 smaller ones, about 1.4 meters long, typically move together. I see. So, does the large one return first or the smaller ones? It could be either. There's no clear pattern, but their return intervals aren't long, around 15 minutes. Elias Graves nodded, now having a general understanding of the situation. If the 3 sea hags usually move together, running was the best option. After all, facing all 3 at once was far too risky, but if it were just 2, there would be a chance to fight. Could you hold one of them off? Elias Graves asked. If it's one of the smaller ones, I should be able to. I've fought them before. Suna's voice rang out. She had replenished her salt and water, and eaten some fish, slowly recovering. It was clear that her physical condition wasn't bad. She might even be stronger than Elias Graves. The main weapon of the sea hags is their song, but it doesn't affect women. Also, their upper body strength isn't much. It's about the same as an average woman's, so their strength is around for about the same as mine. On land, avoiding their claws and teeth is all you need to do, Suna explained. Her body bore several shallow wounds, likely from the sea hag's claws. If I'd known there were 3 of them, I wouldn't have been caught. You have a gun, so dealing with them should be no problem, as long as you block your ears and shoot quickly. Suna didn't know that Elias Graves' gun would misfire, so she thought there was no difficulty in defeating them. Elias Graves, however, didn't intend to explain. Revealing his weaknesses wasn't his style. He began checking his status panel.